Part 44. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 431. I disagree. Zhang Lingxian said as he lifted the quilt and struggled to sit up. For a moment, he didn't even care about the unhealed wounds on his palms. Suppressing the panic welling up in his heart, he said incoherently, "What do you know? Why are you suddenly talking about divorce? We still have a daughter, she is only that old, and just because of this little thing." Qian Yishan just grabbed her wrist that started to bleed, and couldn't help but pause when he heard this action, a little thing. It seems that you also know how serious this matter is, otherwise you wouldn't hide it from me so hard. You know that I can't tolerate it?" Zhang Lingxian rushed to hug him, bursting into tears. "Yishan, I was wrong, I really know I was wrong, please forgive me this time. From now on, I don't want anything, just you and Nanan. Don't you even give me a chance to correct my mistakes after I realize them." Qian Yishan looked relaxed for a moment, paused, and asked softly, "Do you still remember what you said when you woke up from the coma after the operation that day?" Zhang Lingxuan's arm holding him stiffened suddenly. You know this from Zhang Lingzi. She just said that if she didn't tell her, her parents would definitely not tell her. Although Grandpa was disappointed in her, he probably wouldn't tell how Yi Shen would know. Then there were only other people in the box at that time. Zhang Lingzi. Zhang Lingxian couldn't help but grit his teeth in his heart. How come there are people like this everywhere? Wait a minute, how come you have Zhang Lingzi's contact information? Qian Yishan felt a little tired. Could it be that his wife still suspected that he had a secret relationship with Zhang Lingzi? Is he so untrustworthy in his wife's mind? He replied patiently, "I asked for it from Yihan." "You forgot, she went to watch Zhang Lingzi's show live, and she also got her contact information." Only then did Zhang Lingxian realize that he had asked the question at the wrong time, and quickly made up for it. I just asked casually, don't worry." Qian Yishan nodded lightly, and then gently but unyieldingly pulled Zhang Lingxuan's hands away from him. "Lingxian, after this incident, we will never be able to go back to the past." "What do you think, woolen cloth?" Zhang Lingxian watched helplessly as Qian Yishan turned around and left the ward without looking back after telling her to calm down. Finally, he couldn't help but raise his head and cry. "Calm down, how can I possibly calm down?" She stood up as she spoke, picked up the glass vase on the bedside table and threw it out. I heard a bang sound, the vase broke and the glass flew everywhere, and then I felt that my irritable emotions were vented a little. Subsequently, everything that could be moved and thrown out of the ward was doomed. Qian Yishan didn't go far. Hearing the noise coming from the ward, he stopped the nurse who also heard the noise and wanted to go in and take a look. "Don't go in yet, wait until she finishes venting. I am also afraid that my wife will ignore her and accidentally injure the nurse." "Director Qian." The nurse who was stopped was hesitant to speak. "Why don't you go in and comfort me? How could anyone watch his wife go crazy inside like this? Moreover, haven't Director Qian and his wife always been very affectionate?" Qian Yishan just shook his head at her. "Just go and do your business, don't worry about it here." When he finally couldn't find anything to smash with, Zhang Lingxian stopped. Thinking of something, he quickly dug out the cell phone with a broken screen from the mess, found the number and dialed it. Lin Yi received the call from her daughter, waved away the masseuse's hand on her head, rubbed her temples and answered the call. "Xian. Mom, Yi Shen wants to divorce me." The hoarse, crying voice made Lin Yi sit up and said, "What did you just say? Say it again." "That son-in-law who has always had a mild temper actually wants a divorce?" She really suspected that she had heard wrongly. "Yishan wants to divorce me. He knows everything about that night. What should I do, Mom? I don't want a divorce." "So what if I know, he can climb up to you like smoke from his ancestral grave, and he dares to propose divorce. Just wait, Mom will come over right away. Jian Yishan was cleaning up the mess in the ward. When he heard footsteps, he turned around and saw his mother-in-law rushing to the hospital in a hurry. There was no trace of surprise on his face. "Mom! Don't call me Mom." Lin Yi looked at her disheveled daughter, stepped forward and hugged her with distress, then turned her head and glared at her son-in-law who was standing there. Xian was just an impulse. Besides, Su Ling'an is fine. Xian is feeling uncomfortable now. You dare to propose divorce? Do you have any conscience? Then just think I have no conscience. After saying these words, Zhang Lingxian burst into tears. Lin Yi was also stunned. The mother and daughter looked at each other closely, and their hearts sank. These words are definitely considered harsh for Jian Yishan. You can even admit that you have no conscience, which shows that you have really made up your mind. As the saying goes, you are not afraid of people with a bad temper getting angry, but you are afraid of people with a good temper getting angry. The former is a common and trivial matter, while the latter is unbearable and finally breaks out. It is not of the same magnitude at all. Lin Yi now saw Jian Yishan's attitude with her own eyes, and knew that it was not the time for her to lose her temper randomly. When he spoke again, his tone became a little softer unconsciously. "Yishan, you see, you and Xian have been married for a few years. Our daughter is about to go to kindergarten, and we didn't get along well before. There is really no need to do this because of this. Something." Jian Yishan couldn't help but chuckled when he heard this. He thought of what Zhang Lingxian had said before, and he could only say that they were indeed a mother and daughter. Lin Yi's words were stopped by his laughter. "Mom, Lingxian, do you still remember what I said about our family's family situation before we got married? When there was a car accident, my sister and I survived because we were protected by my brother and sister-in-law. My sister didn't even get married just to save herself. I can compromise on everything else, but our little niece can't bear it and I can't get over it. Nanny is still outside and being watched by the nanny. I have to go and have a look. I will sign the divorce agreement and send it over." The ward door was gently closed, but this small sound fell on Zhang Lingxian's ears, which was already stunned, and it was no less than a thunder. The breath she had forced up was finally released, and she collapsed completely on the hospital bed. Lin Yi was also confused for a while and could only watch her son-in-law leave without looking back. Looking at her daughter who had completely lost her energy, she moved her mouth slightly and said, "You're serious about it? What's the matter?" Asterisk. The rest of the Zhang family knew about the divorce between Zhang Lingxian and Jian Yishan within a day. Zhang Anfeng was in a state of distress because of the company's affairs. Somehow, people from several parties found out that he was secretly driving up the price of artworks. This touched the interests of many others. Some were looking for trouble openly or covertly, while others were watching from the other side and wanted to take advantage of the situation. He was busy dealing with it and had to find ways to hide it from the old man. He was so busy that he almost slept in the company. When I got home, I wanted to relax, but my wife came over and said that my daughter and son-in-law were divorcing. Zhang Anfeng has been relying on the old man's fame and connections for so many years, but after this series of unexpected blows, he became as irritable as a trapped animal. Looking at his wife who was still crying and complaining about this and that, I couldn't bear it anymore and slapped her in the face, picked up the suit I just took off and got up to leave. This house can't stay any longer. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 432. Zhang Nashuan looked at his grandson-in-law sitting at the bottom. He could sense that his son and daughter-in-law had always been a little dissatisfied with Jian Yishan's family background, but he was still very satisfied with his grandson-in-law. Although his career has nothing to do with art, he is still a doctor who saves lives and heals the wounded, and he became the director of the department at a young age. It is also modest and courteous, and has just complemented Ling Xian in personality. In the past few years, the marriage has been very good in business and career. To use an old saying, it is difficult to find even with a lantern. But, that kid Ling Xian is really confused. A good hand was beaten to pieces by her. Yishan, have you made up your mind? Yes, Grandpa. Zhang Nashuan put down the already cold tea in his hand, then I, the old man, have no objection. Qian Yishan didn't expect him to nod in agreement so easily, and looked over in surprise. Grandpa. Zhang Nashuan waved his hand tiredly. I've been watching this kid for a few years. You seem to have a gentle temper, but in fact you can't tolerate any sand in your eyes. What Ling Xian did this time is really too much, and my old man also, I have no shame in forcing you to continue living together. Besides, you won't be happy even if you continue to live together, right? Then just let it go and stop tormenting each other. It will be good for both of you. Qian Yishan stood up and bowed deeply to the old man sitting at the top. Yishan, thank you Grandpa for this. But even if you are divorced, you still have to come over with me if you have time. Even if you no longer have the status of grandson-in-law, you are still the father of my great-granddaughter and a descendant that I admire. Good. Let's go, you and your daughter are here specially to have a meal with the old man and then go back. Now that Anan is going to school, there will be no one to eat with this bad old man like me. Asterisk. Zhang Lingxian looked at the divorce agreement that had been signed with the man's name in front of him. At the property distribution page, she took a quick look and saw that Qian Yishan gave her most of the family's assets, including the house where she lives now. But he wanted to take away the custody of his daughter. Lin Yi already knew that the two were going to divorce and even the old man agreed. Since there was no room for recovery, Ling Xian was now penniless and had lost his job, so it would be good to share more property. He has a conscience. He handed over the pen and said, just sign it. I don't like him at all. It's okay to leave him. Mom will help you find a better one. Zhang Lingxian signed with red eyes and trembling fingers. At this time, she really had nothing except the property she was assigned. By the way, Mom, where is my dad? It's been 2 days since I came back from the hospital. Why haven't I seen him? Don't mention him to me. Lin Yi's face turned dark. Your dad has been crazy these days. He has a bad temper. I only came back to complain a few words in the past 2 days, but he actually dared to hit me. It's okay if I don't come back, I'm still comfortable living alone. He beat you. Zhang Lingxian was so shocked that he couldn't even care about grieving for his broken marriage. How could Dad be willing to beat you? Who knew? I was stunned at the time Lin Yi touched the face that was beaten 2 days ago. I didn't react until she left. Is there something wrong with the company? How do I know this? You know I never ask about your father's company. If your position in your company is still there. Seeing her daughter's expression darken, Lin Yi quickly shut up. Zhang Lingxian forced a smile and picked up the phone. Let me call and ask Xiaozhou. Although her position was removed, she had been working for so many years, and how could she be willing to let go? Moreover, when Zhang Lingzi said that she would be kicked out of the Zhang family, he did not say that she would not be able to apply for jobs in his company in the future. It's just that the phone call was made or not, and Zhang Lingzhou didn't know anything about it. This business is high risk and high profit, and Zhang Anfeng doesn't want to let his son, who has just started working, touch it. I'm just afraid that he might mess it up accidentally. However, it is not without some gains. Xiaozhou said that Dad didn't return to the company after he left home. The mother and daughter looked at each other and couldn't help but think of a possibility. Lin Yi's face turned pale. She shook her head and murmured in a low voice, it's impossible, it's impossible. Your dad is not that kind of person. Zhang Lingxian didn't want to think in that direction, but the more he didn't think about it, the more he couldn't help but think about it. Mom, do you remember the time we took my daughter shopping and met someone who looked like my dad in the mall? Looking back, my daughter called out to her grandfather. Lin Yi stood up and said, "Okay, stop talking. You haven't settled the divorce yet, so just leave me and your dad alone." Speaking, he turned around and hurried back to the room. Zhang Lingxian looked at the newly signed divorce agreement on the table in front of him and held his head in pain. Everything was fine originally. How come we have fallen to this point all of a sudden? Lin Yi returned to the room and locked the door, then took out her mobile phone and made a call. "Mrs. Li, you said before that you hired a private detective to find out about your husband's cheating. Can you introduce him to me?" This was said casually by the opponent at the poker table before when he was excited about playing. She originally sneered at this, but she didn't expect that it would fall on her so quickly. "Isn't it?" The voice on the other side was surprised. "Your Lao Zhang doesn't look like this kind of person." "It's not about checking for cheating," Lin Yuqiang laughed, "it's because my Xiaozhou recently got a girlfriend. I suspect that girl's motives are not pure, and the brat won't listen to me, so I want to check it out quietly. If it's a good one, that's it. If the real purpose is not pure, I will make her spit out the money she defrauded this brat of mine, including the profit." "Well, you can check it out. There are a lot of little girls like this nowadays. You really need to keep your eyes open. I will give you his contact information. If you add it, you will say that he was introduced by me. People only recognize people who are introduced by acquaintances." "Okay, thank you. I'll treat you to dinner when the results are available." Hang up the phone, she silently added in her heart, "It's best that there is no result." She didn't know if she could bear it if she really found out something. Asterisk. Just after the show ended, Zhang Lingzi received a call from Su Ling'an. "Are you still allowed to make phone calls during military training? You can fight, but you have to take turns, and each person only has 3 minutes. So, is your military training intense? Can you still hold it?" "It's okay. If I feel uncomfortable, I will tell the instructor. Our class is assigned a female instructor this time, and she is very nice." "That's good. Do what you can, don't force yourself." Thinking of Su Ling'an's small body that still doesn't have much flesh after so long since they met, Zhang Lingzi thought of a person. The Dr. Su whom she met when she was filming Let's Travel Together. At that time, she drank the tonic prescribed by Dr. Su, and the effect was pretty good. When you have free time, you can take Su Ling'an to visit again. "Sister, there is one more thing. Zhang Lingxian is divorced, Grandpa told me." Zhang Lingzi suddenly thought of Qian Yishan, who had persistently called her 3 times in the past 2 days. This decision must be said to be very wise and decisive. She was a little impressed. Good distance. Su Ling'an. She couldn't help but laugh. "I knew my sister would say that." "How's the filming going, sister?" Everything went smoothly, every day was wonderful. Daily filming, while also competing with Chongyan in a battle of wits and scheming with each other, and in my free time, I can also watch the real-time investigation progress of a desert murder case. This life couldn't be more exciting. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 433. Qian Yuchang opened the door and looked at the large suitcase, one small one and one suitcase at the door. He sighed and took the little niece over. "Now we are really like brothers and sisters. Single, raising one child. Fortunately, the man beside her is grown up and sensible, so she doesn't need to worry too much." Qian Yishan carried the suitcase in. "The house near the hospital is due for about half a month, and I want to renovate it later. I'm afraid I'll have to stay with you during this period." Qian Yuchan put his little niece on the sofa next to his eldest niece, straightened up and patted his second brother on the shoulder. "Stay wherever you want. Instructing the eldest niece to look at the younger niece, the brother and sister went to the tidied bedroom. Qian Yishan watched his second brother, who was single, again unpacking his suitcase and packing his luggage skillfully, and couldn't help but sigh. It's a bit surprising that my former second sister-in-law would sign the divorce agreement so quickly. I didn't expect it. I thought your divorce was a big deal. I expressed my attitude, and she knew in her heart that after this incident, the two of us would definitely not be able to go back to the past. In addition, I had gone through a clear path with the old man, and I had made concessions in the division of property. If we continue to pull this apart, it will only be in vain. It's better to put an end to the resentment as soon as possible. Qian Yishan nodded after hearing this. That's the reason. I used to think that my former second sister-in-law was a bit overbearing. Who would have thought that she would do things so crazy? Even if we divorce, she can even plot against her family. This kind of person is too. It's terrible. Our Qian family can't surrender. Qian Yishan glared at her, talking people like monsters. Go out and play, I don't need your help. I want to comfort you. A few more words. Unnecessary. Then I'm going out. When Qian Yishan packed up his luggage and came out, he saw his sister, niece, and daughter sitting in rows on the sofa, watching the TV screen seriously. He walked over and took a look at the program the three of them were watching. I saw a somewhat familiar face. This is Zhang Lingzi. Qian Yishan turned around and waved to him. Today Yaya and Miss Zhang went to the National Taiwan to record the heritage of calligraphy and painting to be broadcast. Otherwise, I would have sent this girl back to study. The second brother sat down. Want to watch it together? Qian Yishan walked around to the front of the sofa, picked up his daughter, who was also watching carefully, sat down, and looked at the TV screen. When the screen was cut to Zhang Lingzi. Qian Yaya, Sister Zixi is indeed the most eye-catching one among the group. Qian Yihan, my temperament is also outstanding, and this outfit is also very nice. Qian Yaya, I remember that I changed into 3 sets of clothes during the 3 days of recording, and each set looked very good. Qian Yihan, the style of this dress is a bit familiar to me, but I can't remember which brand it is. Alas, I am really old. But it doesn't stop me from chasing stars, hee. Qian Yishan felt a little complicated as he listened to the two people's endless discussion. Who would have thought that such a big star who shines brightly on the screen can be so fierce and domineering in private? He still can't imagine how such a person can make his ex-wife extremely embarrassed by using only a mobile phone to remotely command. There are actually people who question Sister Zixi being selected for the recording of heritage of calligraphy and painting. Sister Zixi can obviously beat us all, okay. Why does no one question Jinghuai, who is also a star? He is the one a piece of rat shit, okay. The angry voice of his eldest niece brought him back to his thoughts. Turning around, he saw 2 people next to him holding a mobile phone, frowning at the screen. Why are you angry? The show has just started, and those who question it after seeing it will be slapped in the face. Finally speaking, Qian Yishan also looked unhappy. Are these all Miss Jiang's fans? They came out and made such nonsense right after the show started airing. Qian Yaya paused. Sister Zixi seems to have quite a lot of negative fans. Can she say that before this program was recorded, her impression of Sister Zixi was not very good because of the influence of these anti-fans on the internet? At that time, she still liked Jinghuai. It was only after she actually made contact with them that she truly felt that the charm of some people was really irresistible. Some people, on the other hand, are just the opposite. After being exposed to it, they die after being exposed to the light. These anti-fans should really meet the real Sister Zixi. They will definitely regret the comments they made online. Qian Yishan looked at his eldest niece. Yaya likes Miss Zhang very much. Qian Yaya nodded without thinking. Of course, I am Sister Zixi's true fan. I am also a CP fan of Sister Zixi and Mr. Shen. CP. It means a couple, a pair. Uncle, Mr. Shen is also on this show. Qian Yishan immediately thought of that person he had mentioned inadvertently from his ex-wife and ex-mother-in-law. The two of them had let it slip once and seemed to have mentioned Mr. Shen once. At that time, he speculated that the table knife that pierced the palm of his ex-wife's hand seemed to have been thrown by Mr. Shen. But after scanning the male guests on TV, I asked, who is Mr. Shen? It hasn't come out yet. Mr. Shen is one of the commentators. This time he was behind the scenes for the first 2 days and only shared the stage with the guests on the second day. Then I won't be able to see it today. You should be able to see it. Qian Yaya herself was not sure, mainly because she didn't know how the program was edited. Uncle, please be patient and wait. But why are you suddenly curious about Mr. Shen? Want to see what kind of person he is? Can stab his ex-wife's hand directly with a table knife. After doing this, I can still escape unscathed in front of my ex-mother-in-law and the old man. But after hearing what he said, Qian Yaya had something to say. Uncle, you can ask me. I also talked to Mr. Shen. Isn't there a word called a gentleman as a jade? I have never been able to find anyone who can match this word. Until I met Mr. Shen, I felt that this word is simply it's tailor-made for him. A gentleman is like jade. Looking at her eldest niece nodding her head like a chicken pecking at rice, Qian Yishan couldn't help but laugh. How can a gentleman like jade pierce someone's palm with a table knife? He really couldn't imagine it. Until I was suddenly tapped on the arm a few times. Come out, come out. Qian Yishan squeezed her daughter's little hand and looked up at the TV. At this sight, I was startled. It's him. Uncle, have you met Mr. Shen? Qian Yishan hesitated for a moment, then nodded. It's a fate. Memories that can be considered distant come back like a tide. At that time, he was an intern doctor who had just graduated from university. Because of his good performance, he was allowed to observe a large-scale operation involving multi-expert consultation. The face wearing a respirator and being pushed out of the operating room is difficult to remove from memory after just one glance. Although the other party was quickly transferred to the hospital and left after the situation turned around, within those few days, the special care unit was almost overwhelmed by all kinds of people who came to visit. It was like a hospital scene. He still remembered the day the other party was discharged from the hospital. Even though he was sitting in a wheelchair, the way he lowered his eyes and said thank you still seemed to be a beautiful picture engraved for thousands of years. The two faces slowly overlapped in his mind. He originally thought that he would never have any interactions with such a person who was not from the same world as him, but he didn't expect. The eldest niece's curious voice sounded in my ears, when did you see me? It's been several years. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 434. Chapter 434 Painting and calligraphy handed down from generation to generation starts broadcast. In the elegant Western restaurant, Shen Chuiyu put down the knife and fork in her hand, picked up the napkin on the side and wiped the corners of her mouth elegantly. From the corner of my eye, I saw the mobile phone in my bag light up. I took it out and looked at it, and subconsciously sat upright. Cleared his throat. Cousin, what do you want me to do? Yun Chan, who was sitting opposite her, raised his eyebrows when he saw this and remained silent. A clear and calm voice sounded on the phone, are you in Liangchuan now? Yes, I was invited to attend a big show. The host of the show is sitting across from me. We have just finished dinner. Do you have enough time? It's okay, I'm just planning to take this opportunity to come out and relax. Then after you visit the big show, go meet someone for me. Shen Chuiyu's eyes suddenly shone with curiosity. Who are we meeting? Your cousin-in-law. Then I'll go. She has been extremely curious about this cousin-in-law for a long time. Although she can see news about this cousin-in-law from time to time on the internet, she still feels that she is separated by a layer of distance. Moreover, the information on the internet was true and false, and the search was so confusing that she didn't bother to read it. My cousin-in-law is also in Liangchuan, what a coincidence. Well, she is filming in Liangchuan now also, the 3 sets of clothes I took from you before. Those 3 sets you said my cousin would use to record the show. Well, now that the show has started, you can go and take a look if you have time. Then I'll take a look when I get back later. Those 3 sets of clothes are at the bottom of my box. I'll definitely have to see how they look on the upper body. I won't let you down, it's okay, I'll send you the address later. Good night, cousin. Hang up the phone. Shen Shui breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking of the background sound I heard when I just answered the phone, I reached out and drank the last sip of red wine in the red wine glass next to me. Sister Yun, are we going back right now? Okay, Yun Chan nodded with a smile, and asked casually as he stood up, I just heard you talking to your cousin. Is your cousin-in-law from the entertainment industry? Yes, for Shen Shui, Yun Chan was both her senior and a friend in the same field. He immediately started chatting when asked, my cousin, there is a saying to describe it, he is like a beautiful woman in the clouds. I always thought that he would die alone, and I always felt that no one could be worthy of him. Speaking of this, he shook his head again, I didn't expect that he would be single so quietly. I only found out about it when he came to me to pick up clothes some time ago. Come here and tell me your cousin. The recording of the show required several sets of clothes, and I almost lost my temper in front of my assistants. My name is Zhang Lingzi. You may have never heard of Sister Yun. She is not a well-known actor, and I have never met a real person. I really didn't expect that my cousin would fall in love with a girl for the first time in his life when the old tree blossomed. Actress. Yun Chan's thoughts turned out to be true. The person was filming in Liangchuan, she was a woman, and she was in her 20s. When these factors were added together, the scope was pitifully small. You guessed it wrong, I have actually seen that girl. Ah. Not long ago, we met through that brat from my family. But you don't have to go all the way to meet someone. I sent an invitation to Miss Zhang, and she will also come to see my big show. Shen Shui didn't ask why Yun Chan gave the invitation letter to her cousin-in-law, who was not very well known in the entertainment industry. She nodded in surprise, that's such a coincidence. Sister Yun, you can send us the invitation then. Are the seats arranged together? A piece of cake. After getting in the car, Yun Chan started the car and thought of something else. He looked at Shen Shui who was sitting in the passenger seat and said, could the 3 sets of clothes you told your cousin about before be the 3 final sets in the second half of the year? I haven't even put on a model after making ready-made clothes. Shen Shui nodded, after all, this is the first time I have made a public appearance on a show. What show? Shen Shui remembers this very clearly, the inheritance of calligraphy and painting from Qiutai. This name sounds very artistic. It seems that Miss Zhang is still a talented woman. Maybe. I'll take a look when I get back. The originally relaxed and pleasant atmosphere in the carriage was interrupted by a rapid ringing of a mobile phone. Yun Chan glanced at the incoming call on the car display, his face suddenly changed, and he reached out and clicked the call. What happened? Boss, the young master met a couple at the convenience store opposite the hotel. He suddenly had a headache and stopped them from leaving. What couple? Looks like he's young, wearing a hat and a mask, but these 2 people seem to know the young master. Okay, hold the person steady, I'll go over right now. Shen Shui waited for her to hang up the phone and said quickly, Sister Yun, don't worry about me. This matter is more important. Let's go over and take a look. She also went to eat some melon by the way. Asterisk. The hotel is not far from the scenic spot and is built very luxuriously. The convenience store opposite is open 24 hours a day. This is a good time to go out and watch the desert starry sky after dinner. Many tourists will choose to come to the convenience store to buy something to eat and drink before going there. However, Yunyi originally planned to come over to buy some snacks and then go back to the hotel. When he finished picking up things and was about to pay the bill, he happened to hear two voices that seemed familiar and subconsciously looked over. Even though the two people walking in holding hands were wearing hats and masks with only their eyes exposed, they still gave him a strong sense of familiarity and an even stronger sense of resistance. He subconsciously used his brain, and his head almost immediately felt severe pain, but his instinct made him grab the arm of the nearest boy. "Don't go, who are you?" The boy didn't say anything, he seemed stunned. Then the girlfriend next to him suddenly screamed, which directly attracted the attention of everyone around him. By the time Yun Chan and Shen Chuiyu arrived, the crowd of onlookers had already formed a circle in front of the convenience store, showing their love of watching the excitement. Yun Chan had no choice but to put on his sunglasses and get out of the car. Seeing this, Shen Chuiyu followed suit. The two of them pushed aside the crowd of onlookers and walked in. They saw Yunyi holding his head with one hand and holding the person tightly with the other. He had a mask of pain on his face and was unconsciously gritting his teeth. The bodyguard responsible for following him blocked the way the two wanted to leave. Yun Chan stepped forward and, without saying a word, reached out and pulled off the couple's hats and masks. The two of them never expected that someone would do something so direct. When their faces were completely exposed, they were both stunned for a moment. They looked at the powerful woman wearing sunglasses in front of them and didn't know how to react for a moment. Yun Chan's eyes fell on the faces of the two people in front of him. Even though he had already made assumptions on the way here, now that he saw the people with his own eyes, his pupils still couldn't help shrinking. Li Yan, it is indeed you two. She has checked all the other members of the adventure team in the past few days, but found nothing unusual. Only Lian and Li Yan are left. I don't know if they have changed their previous contact information or if they are deliberately hiding something. There are no clues. Coupled with Zhang Lingzi's previous message to her asking her to investigate Lian, the suspicion of these two people in her heart has expanded infinitely. She was ready to add more people to Liang Chuan, but she didn't expect that brat to hit someone first. Take the person away and go back to the hotel first. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 435. Chapter 435. The brat has really bad eyesight. Lian and Li Yan had something going on in their hearts. They had not yet recovered from the shock of seeing Yunyi alive. They were frightened by Yun Chan's aura and did not dare to call the police. They were really so attracted by those two people. The bodyguard responsible for protecting Yunyi was dragged away without any refusal. I'm sorry, the younger generation in the family is disobedient and makes everyone laugh. Dedication. Seeing that there was no excitement to be seen, the crowd quickly dispersed. Yun Chan originally only booked the same suite in the hotel for her, her team and the invited VIPs. However, after picking up her amnesiac son, she thought that the brat was in a special situation and she was not worried about living alone, so he simply left her. The room was upgraded to a presidential suite. The mother and son share a room each, and there is enough space outside for her to handle her work. Shen Chuiyu didn't say anything when she pressed the elevator directly to the top floor. Since Sister Yun has no intention of letting her avoid it, it should be okay for her to follow him and eat melon. Instinct told her that the next melon would definitely explode. Compared with Shen Chuiyu's relaxation, Lian, who was huddled in the corner of the elevator, wished she could disappear on the spot. She even hoped that there would be some minor accident in the elevator and she would be slightly injured so that she could escape. Drop everything next. Especially when he heard Yunyi calling that strong aura and bodyguard woman in sunglasses mom. Didn't Yunyi say that he has no home and has always been alone? Where did this unusual looking mother come from? Moreover, as soon as the other party saw her and Li Yan, he actually called out their names accurately, which showed that the other party had already investigated them. But they knew nothing about it. How could this make her not panic? Li Yan on the side was not much better. Although his face was relatively calm, his uncontrollable trembling fingers betrayed his true emotions. His only consolation now is that it seems that Yunyi has lost his memory. He silently prays in his heart that it would be best if he can continue to lose his memory like this. Contrary to expectations, the elevator reached the top floor smoothly. The housekeeper in charge of presidential suits was already waiting in front of the elevator. When the elevator door opened, she was only shocked for a second when she saw the situation inside. Then she realized and asked thoughtfully, "Does Ms. Yoon have any special instructions?" Yoon Chan glanced at the two people huddled in the corner, pondered for a moment and warned, "I have to deal with some personal matters. The top floor is temporarily closed. I don't want anyone else to come up without my permission. When will the seal be lifted?" "Wait for my news." The steward nodded obediently, "Okay." After saying that, he picked up the walkie-talkie on his waist and gave instructions. When Lian and Li Yan saw this, their hearts that had already sunk to the bottom of the abyss uncontrollably sank again, and they felt as if there was an abyss with no bottom in front of them. The two were pushed out. Yoon Chan couldn't take care of them for the moment, and asked the accompanying doctor who lived with their mother and son to give Yoon Yi a detailed examination first. But this waiting was no less than another torture for Lian and Li Yan, who were taken to the living room and under the surveillance of bodyguards and did not dare to move. As soon as the two people's eyes met, the bodyguard noticed and looked over, and the two quickly moved away from each other. There was no time to communicate with eyes. Shen Shui was sitting on the sofa nearby. She had just taken out her mobile phone to receive the address sent to her by her cousin. She was planning to go even further and ask for her cousin's contact information. "I heard that this guy Shen Heshen had it." How could she, a sister, be one step behind? Noticing the eyes looking this way, she raised her eyes and glanced over, facing a cute little pale face. She raised her eyebrows. "What do you think I'm doing? She is just a simple melon eater, and she has no intention of getting involved. Besides, although Sister Yoon does have unkind comments in the industry, they are only for strangers and people who have no ability to look down on but insist on getting along with her. For people who recognize and appreciate her, like her attitude is still very cordial. Now he is so rude to such a young couple. Maybe Yoon Yi's injury and amnesia were caused by such a young couple." Lian thought that this person had appeared with Yoon Yi's mother before, and that she seemed to be gentle and easy to talk to. After hesitating for a moment, Lian finally asked, "Please, are you Yoon Yi's sister?" "Then you guessed wrong, you are inferior." Shen Shui saw Lian's inner plan at a glance, and her expression suddenly became cold. "Don't think about getting close to me, I'm just here to eat." Lian. She bit her lip and was about to say something, but she saw that the other person was already looking at her phone. It was obvious that he didn't want to pay attention to her, so she had to swallow her probing words. In the room that was temporarily converted into a medical room, Yoon Chan was relieved when he received the test result that the headache was only caused by stimulation. "I want to let the smelly boy take a rest, but the doctor's suggestion is that it is rare to stimulate the source and want to restore memory as soon as possible. This process is inevitable." She had no choice but to endure her heartache and bring him back to the living room. Lian looked up when she heard footsteps and saw Yoon Chan, who had taken off his sunglasses. The face was confused for a moment, and then he thought that the other party's surname was Yoon, and his whole body suddenly went numb. "My mind went blank because of the shock." Yoon Chan looked at Lian's sudden expression and knew that this girl had probably recognized him. She sat down opposite the two of them and said straight to the point in a cold voice, "It seems there is no need for me to introduce myself. But here, I am questioning you two as Yoon Yi's mother. I heard from other members of your adventure team, Lian, aren't you Yoon Yi's girlfriend?" And Li Yan, they all said you were Yun Yi's best buddy. It was the adventure team that the three of you organized together. It's only been a while since Yun Yi disappeared during a desert adventure, and now my girlfriend has hooked up with a good friend. How about your sense of shame? Also, I heard from the person who saved Yun Yi that when she picked him up, all the items on his body that could prove his identity were not there. As the two of you who are the closest people to him, you shouldn't explain it to me. Or is it that Yun Yi's injury and disappearance was not an accident at all, but a deliberate murder? As Yun Chan's interrogation became more and more severe, the only thing that could be heard in the huge living room was two increasingly heavy breathing sounds. Explain. The violent drinking of this life, mixed with the anger from a mother, even Shen Shuiwa, who felt she was sitting far away, was startled and almost dropped the mobile phone in her hand. Not to mention the two people who were under pressure. Lian was the first to be unable to hold on, crying and shaking her head wildly, "It's not me, it's not me." Yun Chan interrupted her "not me" cycle and stared into her eyes, "If it's not you, then who is it?" Lian didn't dare to look into Yun Chan's eyes at all. When asked this question, she subconsciously looked to the side. Li Yan, who was nervous. Pig teammates. Originally, he had made up his mind to withstand the pressure and say nothing. He expected that Yun Yi's mother would not be able to torture them severely. He felt that what he did at that time was clean enough. As long as Yun Yi could not recover his memory, the other party would have no evidence. But now, Lian sold him directly. After cursing secretly, he calmed down, met Yun Chan's gaze that moved towards him, and forced himself to calm down and defended, "I didn't know about Yun Yi's injury. Yun Yi was missing at that time, and I was very anxious and nervous." Lian almost collapsed. "Because of Yun Yi, I had a good relationship with Lian, so I went to comfort her. Later, there was no trace of Yun Yi, and the rest of the expedition also suggested that we give up. They all dispersed and left, leaving Lian and I to comfort each other, and then, we couldn't help ourselves, Auntie, we can't help Yun Yi." After saying that, he bowed deeply with an apologetic look on his face. Seeing this, Lian quickly followed suit and said, "Auntie, I'm sorry." Yun Chan couldn't help but sneered. She really didn't know what to say with that brat's look. Look at who these good friends are. But it was not enough to deceive her with these words and this seemingly sincere attitude. "Then you two should be surprised to see that Yun Yi is fine now, right?" The two looked at each other and nodded stiffly, "Yes, yes. I was so surprised just now that I was stunned." "Okay," Yun Chan clapped his hands, "the doctor said that Yun Yi needs enough stimulation to recover his memory. The two of you appearing in front of him just stimulated him. Since you are guilty of him, then what happens next? Time is with him so that he can regain his memory as soon as possible. You should do your best, right?" "Yes, I will." Shen Shuiao listened and couldn't help covering her mouth and coughing slightly. This was clearly treating the two of them as stimulation tools, and dug a pit so that the two of them knew it was a bottomless pit and had to jumping in willingly. Otherwise, it wouldn't mean that the confession I just made was false. As expected of Sister Yun, this move is really great. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 436. Chapter 436 Dog Bites Dog. There are only 2 presidential suites on the top floor, and the remaining one was also booked generously by Yun Chan. However, the 2 people who lived in it did not feel happy at all, and they were not in the mood to look at the exquisite and expensive decorations around them. Only filled with fear and confusion. Li Yan took the salute that the bodyguard brought back from the mid-range hotel room where they stayed before, and turned around to see Lian kneeling on the carpet. Thinking that the two of them were now grasshoppers on the same rope, he walked over and knelt down and was about to say a few words of relief before discussing countermeasures, when he saw a slightly regretful expression on Lian's face. Her expression suddenly changed. Not ready to be relieved, he reached out and grabbed Lian's arm, dragging her into the nearest bathroom. Turn on the faucet and let out a cold sneer at the sound of water flowing. What, do you regret it? How can it be? Lian quickly shook her head in denial. But Lian doesn't have any filters for her. In the final analysis, the two of them are the same species. Now they are together, firstly because they share the same secret, and secondly because they are essentially the same type of people. I can't help but talk about bullshit, so I just talk about it. Do you think you can deceive me with what you are thinking? Lian leaned close to Lian's ear, his deep voice full of threats. I suddenly discovered that Yunyi is not a poor little boy without parents, but has a father. Rich and powerful mother. Do you regret it? It's too late to regret it. Don't forget what you have done. You still dare to think that there is still a possibility with Yunyi. Do you want me to put some cold water on you? Brain. I didn't. Lian looked embarrassed as if she had been guessed, and couldn't help but reach out and push Lian away. What are you talking about? Lian was unprepared for a moment and was pushed hard by her. He took a step back and hit the strong edge of the bathtub. He gritted his teeth in pain and couldn't help but sneered. It seems that I guessed it right. I advise you to best let's get rid of this idea. We are just grasshoppers on the same rope now. If you dare to betray me again, then don't blame me for the dead end. Besides, do you think Yunyi's mother can like you? Who is she? What is your status? You are not even worthy of carrying someone's shoes. The only thing you can do now is to cooperate with me and then pray to Yunyi. I can't remember it, otherwise, let's finish it together. Seeing that Lian lowered her head and said nothing, he looked sharply and said, answer me, don't pretend to be dumb with me here. The emotions of regret and fear were intertwined, giving Lian a splitting headache. After being threatened like this by Lian, she couldn't help but break down and shout, don't force me, okay? If you force me again, I will die in front of you. Then you should try to die for me. With his death, he still lost a pig teammate. Lian clenched his fists thinking about Lian's subconscious betrayal when he was questioned before. Now he really felt that the person in front of him might hold him back. It's a pity that this is not a desert. When he opened the door to pick up his things, he took a look outside and saw that there were bodyguards guarding him. There is no way to make a person disappear quietly. Asterisk. In the suite next door, Yun Chan took off the headphones from his ears, too lazy to listen to the dog-eat-dog drama between the two. He raised his hand and asked the nurse responsible for taking care of Yunyi, is the brat asleep? I have fallen asleep, but my sleep is not very stable, and my brain fluctuates a bit. But this is also a good sign. If the stimulation is in place, the memory may be restored soon. Yun Chan stood up and walked from the living room to Yunyi's bedroom. He sat quietly by the bed for a while before coming out. If it weren't for the two people next door to have some effect, based on what she just heard, even if the two of them subconsciously and cautiously did not say any words related to harming people, she would have plenty of ways to get them to admit it. But it's not bad to live in fear, regret, and mutual torment and defense all the time like now, which can somewhat alleviate the anger in her heart. Shen Shui was sitting in the living room, and the large LCD screen opposite was turned on. Seeing Yun Chan coming out, he quickly waved, Sister Yun. Yun Chan smiled and walked towards her. After sitting on the sofa, he rubbed his brows and said, what happened just now made you laugh? The brat has a very rebellious temperament. He almost lost himself this time. I'm still young. I'm not even a few years younger than you. He plays wildly and takes risks all day long. Speaking of which, didn't I say that he was rescued in the desert? The person who rescued him was Zhang Lingzi. It's because of this that I met Miss Zhang. This was also the reason why she had not planned to ask Shen Shuiyu to avoid her before. Zhang Lingzi is Shen Shuiyu's cousin-in-law and her son's savior. Since this matter cannot be hidden sooner or later, there is no need to hide it. Shen Shuiyu looked stunned. I said so. Before, she was curious about how her cousin-in-law met Sister Yun and was invited to the show, but now she finally connected. Stop talking, let's watch the show and relax before going to bed. When they saw Zhang Lingzi appear on the screen, the eyes of the two people at the top of the domestic fashion field lit up. Shen Shuiyu murmured, "It's no exaggeration to say that the set is tailor-made for my cousin-in-law. I'm already looking forward to the remaining 2 sets." Yun Chan couldn't help but nod in agreement. I thought the fabric and color of the suit would be more suitable for people with a soft temperament, but Miss Zhang gave it a brand new style. When Shen Shuiyu heard what she said, she suddenly thought of something. These 3 sets of clothes have been kept at the headquarters and will not be sold or loaned out. It's not that she doesn't want to, but if she wants to sell or loan them out, she must get his cousin's approval. Who asked for some of the designs and the most important fabrics to be provided by his cousin. Even when Su Qingmei expressed her desire to buy one of the houses when it was open for viewing, her cousin flatly refused. Thinking about it now, these 3 sets of clothes must have been specially prepared for her cousin-in-law early in the morning, right? That's why only one person can get on the body, and no one else can. The more she thought about it, the more Shen Shuiyu felt that this was a possibility. At this moment, she couldn't help but start to wonder if her cousin's original investment in establishing Shanyu's Haihen was just to give her cousin's sister-in-law more suitable and beautiful clothes to wear. After all, buying or borrowing is not as convenient as making it yourself. Su Qingmei actually became a commentator on the show Does She Understand Calligraphy and Painting? Her dress is as gorgeous and vulgar as ever. With a slightly disdainful tone, Shen Shuiyu came out of her thoughts and looked intently at the TV. She saw the team of commentators appearing on the screen at this moment. Apart from Su Qingmei, a familiar face, there was another person who made her cover her mouth, but the exclamation still escaped from the corner of her mouth. Cousin. She only heard from her cousin that her cousin-in-law was going to be a guest on this show, but she didn't hear that her cousin was also going with her. Is this still her cousin who usually lives in seclusion and doesn't like to appear in public? If it wasn't for her cousin-in-law, she wouldn't believe it. Yun Chan heard Shen Shuiyu's exclamation and looked at the young man sitting next to Su Qingmei. Shen Yunqing, is this your cousin? Shen Shuiyu nodded dreamily, it's true. Su Qingmei is still as intolerant as ever. She seems to be hostile to your cousin. You are a good cousin. Although you don't talk much, you always make Su Qingmei unable to get off the stage. Shen Shuiyu then realized that Yun Chan seemed to dislike Su Qingmei. Of course, she also had a mediocre impression of this person. Don't Sister Yun like Su Qingmei? At any rate, she is one of the few domestic actresses who can enjoy success internationally. It's shiny on the outside, but it's all messy on the inside. Yun Chan looked disdainful. Because of Zhang Lingzi's relationship, she now saw Shen Shuiyu as more affectionate, so she had no reservations. Just wait, Su Qingmei's behavior is getting more and more arrogant because of her fame, coupled with the things she did behind the scenes, she won't be proud for long. He paused and then reminded, besides, she also has a little habit. With your cousin's appearance, he should be careful. There are some dirty little tricks that people can't guard against. Shen Shuiyu. This must be reminded in place. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 437. Chapter 437 Want to meet Mr. Shen by chance. The first episode of Painting and Calligraphy handed down from generation to generation was edited and lasted less than an hour. It stopped abruptly when the car carrying the guests parked at the entrance of the Nasuon Private Painting and Calligraphy Museum the next day, and the cameras scanned the stone sculptures at the entrance of the museum. Everyone who watched the show was a little bit unsatisfied. State Taiwan is a TV station that is more educational than entertainment. It is also one of the TV stations that parents are more willing to let their children watch. Not to mention that this show also gathered Su Qingmei, a popular movie queen, and Jing Huai, a relatively popular niche. Zhang Lingzi's survival is still hot, and the Three People's fans also contributed a lot to the ratings. Strength. So after the program was broadcast, it lived up to director Chen Weiwen's expectations, and the ratings were much higher than other programs at the same time. But when he saw the discussion about the program that started to appear on the internet, he laughed a little embarrassed. He originally thought that after the show was broadcast, there would be the most discussions about Su Qingmei and Jing Huai. After all, these two people are the most famous. As it turned out, the question that ranked first in terms of topic was a question contributed by netizens. #I am going to visit the Imperial Capitol Museum and the Yinhe Palace Museum now. Can I meet Mr. Shen by chance? #. Followed by a lot of people asking the same question. Some people even actually booked a place to visit the museum and posted screenshots. Chen Weiwen couldn't help but wipe his sweat. Originally, there were a lot of people visiting these two places every day, but now there are so many people clamoring to meet Mr. Shen by chance. He could almost imagine how crowded these two places would be during the upcoming holidays. Should I find someone to dispel the rumor in advance? The second-ranked person is still not Su Qingmei, but Zhang Lingzi, whose number of fans is 2 zeros less than Su Qingmei's. The popularity is no worse than that of the one before her. The only difference is that Mr. Shen showed up for the first time, and he is an amateur, but he dwarfs all the male stars in the entertainment industry. However, the topics about Zhang Lingzi are the richest. They discuss everything from the clothes and makeup on the show to the contrast in temperament. Some people even ask whether the ink produced on the show can be sold and are willing to buy it at a high price. The third topic is about Su Qingmei. Reading the whole article, it is basically full of praise. Reading too many stereotyped praises will always make people feel tired. Moreover, Chen Weiwen also saw some shadows of the Navy Army in it. As for Jing Huai, with Shen Yunqingziyu in front, he is not very conspicuous, and his performance in the show is not satisfactory. Besides, the other amateurs among the guests are not bad in appearance, and their performance is not bad, but the popularity of the topic is more than a little worse. Looking at it this way, in order for Su Qingmei to come to the show, I compromised and let in Jing Huai, and because I was dissatisfied by Mr. Li thinking about the unsatisfactory performance of the two during the recording of the show, I finally had to admit it, I really made a mistake at the beginning. This show might be even more exciting without Su Qingmei and Jing Huai. But it's too late to regret now. Fortunately, the response to the program was good, and it can even be said that Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing pulled him in very well, which was the greatest consolation for his hard work these days. Asterisk. After watching the program, Shen Chuiao said good night to Yun Chen. After returning to her room, she couldn't wait to dial the phone to the Imperial Capital. Shen Yunqing was already ready to go to sleep. When he saw the incoming call, he reluctantly clicked through. "Cousin, I've finished watching the show." "Well, I just finished reading it too." "I admit that my cousin-in-law is indeed the most suitable person for that set of clothes. Cousin, tell me honestly, are those 3 sets of clothes specially prepared for my cousin-in-law?" "Well, only she can wear it." Shen Chuiao. "This dog food is really stuffed. By the way, cousin, remember to be careful about that Su Qingmei." This time it was Shen Yunqing. His tone became colder. "Why did you mention her so suddenly?" "Someone reminded me that Su Qingmei might have evil intentions towards you. After all, she is also a movie star. Not to mention her character, At least her charm is there. Aren't I worried about you? Cousin, just because of that your determination should not be confused by Su Qingmei, right? Shen Yunqing pressed his temples tiredly. Don't worry, it won't happen. It was too late for him to feel disgusted. That's good, that's good. Are you going to rest? I won't disturb you. Good night. Hang up the phone, she muttered. It's really an old person's routine. Unexpectedly, because of her sudden reminder, an elderly person got up from bed and made a call. In the next few days, pay close attention to Su Qingmei's studio. If there are any unusual actions, report to me immediately. Also pay more attention online. If you find any remarks that are not conducive to Zhang Lingzi, deal with them immediately. If Su Qingmei still wants to use this program, she will use small means to make a fuss. He would tell her, no way. Even the windows are sealed. Asterisk. Luan Feng stepped into the villa and took a few steps back when he noticed something. At this moment, a glass of red wine was thrown over and broke not far from him. A few pieces of the shattered glass even scratched his pants, and a few drops of red wine were splashed on the light-colored fabric. His face darkened, and he looked up at Su Qingmei, who was wearing a nightgown with disheveled hair. The disgust in his tone was not concealed at all. What are you crazy about? Su Qingmei lifted her hair that was blocking her sight. When she saw that the person coming was Luan Feng, her arrogant expression immediately dropped and she became a little weak. Why are you here? I thought it was Jing Huai. The implication is that she threw it deliberately because Luan Feng was allowed to come over at this time. During this period, nothing was going well for her. During the filming, there was a Zhang Ziyu on the crew who looked somewhat similar to Zhang Lingzi. She had been able to force herself to give in to this guy named Zhang before, because someone from above was giving orders. But since she didn't get any favors from Zhang Lingzi but was ruined by Zhang Lingzi, she almost hated Zhang Lingzi to death. When she got to the crew, she had to look like a good master to Zhang Ziyu's face in front of the camera. Don't mention the anger in your heart. Back to the residence, there was Luan Feng who made a mistake and was kicked out. He was obviously staying with her to recuperate, but he didn't take her seriously at all, and he often antagonized her for no reason. Because of my lack of strength, I always fall behind, which makes my life miserable. Sometimes she even wants to kill this person while the adults are away. Today is the day when painting and calligraphy handed down from generation to generation starts airing again. When she got interested, she turned on the TV and watched it, but she felt angry again. What kind of editing was done to actually show all the words Shen Yunqing said against him? Does Chen Weiwen still remember the words she told him before? There are also comments on the internet. It's a good thing that he lost to Shen Yunqing in terms of topicality. After all, she still covets this person. But how come Zhang Lingzi, a person with nearly 100 times fewer fans than her, is more popular than her? Have all her fans become mute? How can their fighting power be so weak? Just a quarter of an hour ago, she called Jing Huai and asked Jing Huai to come over immediately, wanting to vent the anger that had accumulated in her heart during this period, but who knew it was Luan Feng who came in. Hearing the name Jing Huai, the disgust in Luan Feng's eyes became stronger. My lord gave you the soul goo, not for you to use it like this. Such a precious thing was actually used by this woman to keep a pet that was just used to vent her anger. It was such a waste of natural resources that even he felt despised. Since it has been given to me, I can use it however I want. I really don't know what my lord likes about you, you are absolutely useless. There was another word he didn't curse, but Su Qingmei saw it in his eyes. Luan Feng, Su Qingmei, who was already full of anger that could not be vented, was scolded by the person in front of her who was always against her for being useless, with a look of humiliation. Isn't it amazing that you made a mistake a few days ago and was kicked back by the adults? I still remember the way you looked at that time. You were covered in injuries and looked as dingy as a lost dog. You still have the nerve to talk to me. What Luan Feng couldn't bear the most was being mentioned about this. When he looked at Su Qingmei, there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Strength is the most important thing in the section. Even if I say you are worthless, I still praise you. If you really want to take action, I will lift my finger. I can crush your head to death. Su Qingmei pinched her neck and laughed wildly. I don't believe you dare to touch me without your permission. Don't forget, you are still standing on my territory. You see if I dare. Your Excellency and my sister are not with you now. Even if I beat you half to death, you go and file a complaint and see if they will abandon Zhang Lingzi and come back. Su Qingmei met Luan Feng's red eyes, which were aroused by her, and then saw his approaching steps. She panicked in her heart, picked up the other red wine glass on the table and threw it away to stop him from approaching. But this time Luan Feng was already on guard. He dodged the smashed cup with a feint and stood in front of Su Qingmei. Lightning made a move and grabbed her neck. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 438. Chapter 438 Failure of Control, Backlash. His movements were so fast and his hands were so powerful that Su Qingmei instantly felt like she was suffocating. Hurriedly struggling to slap his arm, he tried his best to make a sound. Put it down, let it go. Is this person crazy? He actually dares to attack her. Luan Feng originally wanted to give her a few more slaps to wake her up, but his palms were raised, and he suddenly remembered that this woman was still a public figure. The marks on the neck can be covered with clothing, but the marks on the face are not so easy to cover. He was reluctant to use the medicine given to him by the adults on Su Qingmei. At this moment, her expression became frightened and she was unable to struggle. Instead, Luan Feng smiled happily and strengthened his hand a little more. The look of desperate struggle on this face now is much more pleasing to the eye than the arrogance and domineering look before. Su Qingmei's eyes began to bulge, her lips turned purple, and her struggling movements slowed down. It wasn't until the sound of footsteps sounded in her ears that she woke up a little, and she quickly squinted her eyes and looked over for help. Luan Feng also looked back and relaxed his grip. Su Qingmei didn't care whether the person coming had the ability to stop Luan Feng, so she seized the opportunity and said quickly, "Help, help me." Jing Huai, who had just walked in, was confused for a moment when he saw the scene in front of him. Then, as if he had received an instruction that must be completed, he rushed forward and tried his best to break Luan Feng's hand that was holding Su Qingmei's neck. Luan Feng had no intention of paying attention to an ordinary person like Jing Huai. This little effort was simply useless. Until this man went crazy and scratched the back of his hand, and the sudden pain made him wave his hand, and pushed Jing Huai away for several meters, until his back hit the wall hard, and he collapsed to the ground. Jing Huai felt a shock all over his body. The pain was so numb that he could no longer feel the pain. He opened his mouth and spat out a large mouthful of blood with a strange color. But the other two people didn't even look at him. One has no energy to read anymore, and the other is too lazy to read. Seeing that Su Qingmei was close to dying, Luan Feng looked at the despair and pleading in her eyes, and asked with a chuckle, "Have you ever tasted the feeling of overestimating your own capabilities?" Su Qingmei nodded with all her might. "From now on, don't mess with me. You can't die without your permission, but I don't think you want to experience this feeling a second time, right?" Su Qingmei was already in a daze, and she shook her head with her last strength. Neither of them noticed Jing Huai sitting up slowly from the ground. Sensing that the man in his hand was about to reach his limit, Luan Feng was about to let go when a figure suddenly rushed towards him. "Go to hell." The fruit knife, which was nearly 10 centimeters long and still had a fruity aroma, was held tightly by a pair of hands covered with veins, and penetrated the nightgown and skin, piercing deeply. Luan Feng subconsciously loosened his grip and turned around to see Jing Huai's twisted and crazy face with a few traces of blood remaining. Following the man's hands, he saw the fruit knife that was deeply embedded in Su Qingmei's chest. The first thing that came to mind was that the adult Soul Gu had actually failed, and he murmured in disbelief, how could Su Qingmei really felt that she was going to die this time? She didn't even care that Jing Huai had turned back on her as her master. With the breath of air she just breathed in, she used her newly recovered strength to grab Luan Feng and put it on her neck. Help, help me. Luan Feng would not really let her die, but Jing Huai was really planning to kill her. Is it time to wonder why the Soul Gu is ineffective? Luan Feng really didn't dare to let Su Qingmei die like this. Although he was not the one who killed him, he still has an unshirkable responsibility. Ignoring Jing Huai, who shrank back into the corner after stabbing Su Qingmei with a knife, Luan Feng endured the pain and took out the life-saving medicine he had collected and stuffed it into Su Qingmei's mouth, then used the knife to cut open her nightgown at the wound and checked. After checking that the wound was no longer at the fatal site, he carefully pulled out the knife, and then continued to endure the pain and sprinkle special trauma medicine on it. He was reluctant to use these medicines when Zhang Lingzi injured his heart and chest and back before. But this time, he was forced to use them all on Su Qingmei. He noticed that the breathing of the person under his hand had finally calmed down, and he let go of his hand with relief. He handed over the phone and said, "It's okay. Call a reliable doctor." Su Qingmei endured the pain from the wound and made a phone call. Jing Huai squatted in the corner, watching the movements of the two people intently. He just vomited a large mouthful of blood, and when Su Qingmei was strangled to the point of death, his control over him suddenly decreased. His mind, which had been under control during this period, finally came to his senses. Then I remembered that Su Qingmei would call him over and torture him every time she got angry, humiliating him in every possible way like a dog. Then what struck his heart was deep resentment. Seeing Su Qingmei dying at that moment, he didn't want to worry about anything. He just wanted to take the opportunity to take revenge and go back. Until now, I didn't feel scared. He almost killed someone in his impulsiveness just now. While the two people not far away did not notice him for a moment, Jing Huai glanced at the door of the villa and moved quietly. These two people are devils and will not let him go. He must run away quickly and far away. Luan Feng noticed Jing Huai's movements and didn't even look at him. He asked Su Qingmei, who had just hung up the phone, "What are you going to do with this person?" Su Qingmei swallowed the sweet smell in her throat. This time she really walked around the gate of and came back. She hated Jing Huai to the core of her bones for taking the opportunity to stab her. Clenched his teeth and said, "I want him to live worse than death." Luan Feng almost couldn't help but roll his eyes at her. "Don't forget, he is an actor just like you, living in the eyes of so many people. It's better to live than to die. Can you imprison him or something? If you want me to see, it's better to just cause an accident. This is the lowest risk. Also, don't forget, adults don't like to mess around." Jing Huai's heart was already in his throat as he listened to the two people discussing how to deal with him without any scruples. Seeing that the door of the villa was not far away, he suddenly became heartbroken, endured the severe pain in his body, stood up, and ran wildly. He ran and shouted, "Help, someone is trying to kill me." He didn't care whether the actor's privacy would be exposed because of this. Nothing could be more important than his own life. His move almost made Luan Feng laugh. He chased after him like a cat teasing a mouse. "You really think you can?" The words "can escape" were swallowed hard after he saw the two figures at the door of the villa. As he approached quietly, he asked, "Who are you?" However, neither of those two people paid attention to him. One person grabbed the collar of Jing Huai, who was rushing over like a chicken, and at the same time covered his mouth that was still screaming. Another person held the earphone in his ear and reported to the person on the other end. This time the person suddenly rushed out not long after entering, and shouted that someone was going to kill him. We rushed over as soon as we heard the noise. I just checked briefly and found that there are indeed injuries on his body, and there is blood on the corner of his mouth. He may have suffered internal injuries. He is much more embarrassed than before. Sir, do you want to call the police next? Shen Yunqing rubbed his sleepy eyebrows and got out of bed for the second time tonight. If you call the police, you can't explain why you happen to appear at the door of someone else's villa. Take him to Lu Ye's house first. I'll rush there right away. In addition, he wanted to know what happened in Su Qingmei's villa tonight. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 439. When Su Qingmei finally calmed down, she heard the sound of fighting coming from outside, and she began to panic for no reason. He stood up with force, clutching the wound on his chest that was still slowly healing, and stumbled out after him. He only saw a flash of car tail lights that dissipated in an instant, and Luanfeng standing at the gate, one of his arms hanging unnaturally. Where are the people from Jinghuai? Who were you fighting just now? Whose car was that just now? Luanfeng really wanted to kill someone this time. Hearing the endless questioning behind him, he turned around and slapped him. Idiot, that Jinghuai has been under surveillance for a while and you don't even know. Su Qingmei's head jerked to the side and her ears buzzed, but none of this frightened her as much as Luanfeng's words. Looking at Luanfeng with his side face that was rapidly becoming red and swollen, he asked, what do you mean by this? What do you mean? It means that you think you don't know anything about the bad things you do, but in fact, people may have already started to find out about you. You are not very capable, but you are very angry. Every time Jinghuai is called by you, you can vent your anger. I guess it's all followed by the tail. No, it's impossible. Su Qingmei still didn't want to believe it. What about you? Did you see the person who was following you? Why didn't you keep him? Luanfeng. Why didn't he think of leaving the person behind? Before this, it didn't matter to him whether Jinghuai was dead or alive. But now, the soul goo on Jinghuai suddenly failed for some reason, and he seized his opportunity to teach Su Qingmei a lesson and launched a sneak attack off guard. More importantly, Jinghuai also heard him and Su Qingmei mention your lord. But he never expected that the skills of those two people were not inferior to his at all. He even had one of his arms twisted off because he was outnumbered. He could only watch Jinghuai being taken away by those two people. Looking at the ugly look on his face, Su Qingmei knew that she couldn't get any advantage this time. She would have laughed out loud before, but now, she didn't dare or was in the mood. What should I do now? Luanfeng looked over coldly. The master's soul goo shouldn't be ineffective. Try it and let him commit suicide. They really dared to mention and responded. Su Qingmei didn't care about the knife wound on her chest and quickly activated her soul goo. A black car speeding along the night road. Jinghuai did not dare to move as a hand was pressing his shoulder. He endured the severe pain in his body and asked carefully, "Who are you?" Does this mean he has just stepped out of the wolf's den and into the tiger's den? After seeing that Luanfeng was no match for these two people, he stopped struggling. If you stay, you will definitely die. If you are taken away, you will live and die in half. At any rate, he was not given a third option. What else can I do but accept my fate? However, asking a question may not cost you your life. You will know when it comes. Jinghuai shut up decisively. The next second, veins suddenly popped up on his forehead, and large beads of sweat dripped from his forehead almost instantly. The man who put his hand on his shoulder felt his shoulder suddenly tense under his palm. He realized something was wrong and quickly turned his head and looked over. What's wrong with you? I kill me. Seeing Jinghuai struggling and reaching out to strangle his neck, the man quickly held him down and said, Is it Su Qingmei? Jinghui nodded with difficulty, trying desperately to resist the strong consciousness of committing suicide. He finally came to his senses and must not be controlled again. Su Qingmei, who was stared at by Luan Feng intently, suddenly opened her mouth and spit out a mouthful of blood. This time Luan Feng was too close to her and couldn't dodge, so all her blood sprayed onto her chest and clothes, not a drop was wasted. But now he didn't care about his nausea, and supported Su Qingmei, who was tired. "Why are you vomiting blood?" Backlash. Su Qingmei took a long breath and pulled Luan Feng's arm to prevent her from falling down. Jinghui is resisting my control. I feel very bad now, please help me contact an adult. My lord should have gone to bed by this time. Only adults can help me now, Su Qingmei shouted with red eyes. I will bear the consequences. I just want to live. Hurry. Asterisk. Jinghui was carried out of the car. When Lu Ye saw the person behind him, he couldn't help but turn his head and glance at Shen Yunqing, who was standing aside. Had he not been very clear about this person's character, he would have thought that he was conducting illegal research based on the things Shen Yunqing did during this period that made him feel baffled. Why do people faint? Su Qingmei ordered him to commit suicide. Lu Ye hurriedly stepped forward to check and breathed a sigh of relief. It was because he fainted from force. Let me extract some of his blood for study first. Shen Yunqing nodded in agreement. When will he wake up like this? If he wakes up naturally, he has to wait for him to sleep and regain his energy. What about the unnatural ones? After Boss Lu Ye unceremoniously took away a tube of blood, he stretched out his hand and pinched Jinghui people, and replied, immediately. Shen Yunqing. Jinghui hissed softly and opened his eyes weakly. After adapting to the light in front of him, he saw the figure standing aside. Looking up, he finally met a pair of cold eyebrows. Subconsciously exclaimed, "It's you." Shen Yunqing nodded lightly at him and asked straight to the point, "You just went to Su Qingmei's villa. What happened inside?" Looking at the two men who had injured Luan Feng and brought him here, standing respectfully behind Shen Yunqing, Jinghui still didn't understand. This Shen Yunqing is probably not an ordinary person. It's funny that when he saw this person, he felt jealous and provocative in his heart. I'm afraid that the other person looked at him at that time, just like looking at a clown. He lowered his eyes, cleared his throat, and told the truth honestly. When I entered, the assistant named Luan Feng in Su Qingmei's studio had one hand on her neck. Shen Yunqing took off a string of sandalwood beads from his wrist and gently twisted them to refresh himself while listening to Jinghui explain intermittently what happened in the villa. He had not expected that Su Qingmei and Luan Feng would be at odds with each other. After all, the relationship between the two had become so tense, which was partly due to his and His Majesty's handiwork. I just didn't expect it to be such a coincidence. Su Qingmei was unexpectedly attacked by Jinghui and was stabbed in the chest. Is he okay? Jinghui hesitantly snorted, with a look of disbelief on his face. I saw that Luan Feng just gave Su Qingmei some medicine and simply treated it, and he actually recovered like this. This seemed to him to be simply weird, and after waking up, he realized that he was being controlled inexplicably. In his eyes, Su Qingmei is still a senior movie queen and almost a devil. That's why he desperately wanted to escape without any care. What do you think? Jinghui was stunned for a moment before he realized that this question was not meant for him. Liuji's voice came through the microphone. It should be that a secret medicine was used. But even if it is a secret medicine, it will take some time to recover. She actually wanted to remotely control people to commit suicide despite being seriously injured. Now that she failed, she herself will definitely fall. Not much good. As for the adults they call. Shen Yunqing pinched the Buddhist beads in his hand and said, it should be that Kongyan. Kongyan. Jinghui's eyes widened suddenly. Others are normal when they are not under Su Qingmei's control. Naturally, They also know that Su Kingmei's studio has recently signed a new newcomer with strong momentum. After debuting in the first TV series, he directly joined the crew of Wei Xiao's Empress Yuan Zhao. That new person's name is Chong Yin. His brain was completely exhausted now. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 440. Zhang Lingzi passed by Luan Hua, who was walking towards her. When he entered the tent, he saw Wei Xiao's somewhat darkened face. Satellite guide. Here we come. Wei Xiao raised his hand. Sit down. Did Kong Gaian's assistant come to see you just now? Don't mention it. You asked me for leave, saying that I had to leave because of something urgent, which disrupted my shooting plan. Speaking of this, Wei Xiao just got angry. I have clearly emphasized before that as long as it is not an urgent matter, try not to ask for leave. Even if you have to ask for leave, you should ask for it at least one day in advance so that I can make arrangements. It would be better for him to send him here. An assistant told me that he would hire me for 3 days at a time. Yelu Hongyan's role in the desert is second only to Emperor Yuan Zhao. It's okay now, the filming schedule will have to be moved back. When he thought of this, Wei Xiao felt so worried that he wanted to pull his hair out. Zhang Lingzi handed over a cup of tea sympathetically and asked tentatively, "Didn't you tell me what the specific reason was?" "As I said, human life is at stake, can I not respond?" Wei Xiao took the teacup and smiled bitterly, taking a sip. Those who don't know would think that Mr. Chong is still a doctor rushing to save people. It's not impossible. Wei Xiao. After a cup of tea, Wei Xiao looked at the invitation letter placed in front of him. Is this from Yun Chan? Zhang Lingzi nodded towards him. Actually, I'm here to ask you if my schedule for the next 2 days can be compressed and give me a day. She should have asked for the leave tactfully enough. Originally, her attitude towards attending the show was that she could go or not, but this morning she received 2 messages in a row. One was Shen Shui's friend request, and the other was Yun Chan's fear that she would forget, so he sent a message to remind her again. It's true that it's hard to refuse such hospitality. Wei Xiao. He held the empty teacup in his hand. Sure enough, this cup of tea was not for nothing. However, with Chong Yin from before as a comparison, he felt that Zhang Lingzi, who also came to ask for leave, would be much more pleasing to his eyes. Forget it, he waved his hand. Without Kong Gaian, you can't act as a rival. Go ahead, there's no need to compress it. Anyway, the leave you take now will have to be made up for me later. Zhang Lingzi poured him another cup of tea and stood up to say goodbye neatly. When he came out, he saw Chong Yin and Luan Hua walking out of the tent not far away. Luan Hua also had a backpack in his hand. So urgent? Is it possible that human life is really at stake? I just heard from Director Wei that Mr. Chong has asked for leave for something urgent. Chong Yin put on his sunglasses for a moment, then raised his eyes to look at Zhang Lingzi with a deeper look. There will always be a few idiots in the family who are disobedient and easily provoked, so people will inevitably worry about them. Zhang Lingzi's lips curled up slightly. It's understandable. See you. Watching the two of them get into the car, Zhang Lingzi stood quietly for a moment before turning around and leaving. It seems that the backup plan she left in the imperial capital worked. It was able to alarm Chong Yin to the point where he had to go back in person to solve the problem. This effect was a bit beyond her expectation. It wasn't until she received a call from Shen Yunqing after breakfast that Zhang Lingzi fully understood the reason why Chong Yin left in a hurry. It turned out that there was such a surprise as Jing Huai. Now that Jing Huai is in your hands, what do you plan to do with him? Luya has extracted Jing Huai's blood for testing and found that the active substances in his blood have a tendency to gradually disappear. We speculate that the biggest enemy of this kind of thing should be his own willpower. Log leg on our weak enemy, the enemy is strong and I am weak. Weak and strong. That's the truth. Jing Huai himself doesn't object. He hates that thing more than anyone else now, and he hates Su Qingmei even more. Anything else? He planned to withdraw from the circle, and wanted to reveal some things he knew about Su Qingmei before withdrawing from the circle, but he also knew that his own strength was far from enough, so he asked me for help. You agreed? I don't have a good impression of Jinghuai, but since he is doing this, I don't mind helping him. Just now, Changyin took Luan Feng's sister Luan Hua back. Well, I guess that Su Qingmei's injury this time should not be less serious than Jinghuai's, but it seems that she still has some weight in Changyin's favor because she can allow Changyin to go back in person. Changyin's methods should be more than what I have discovered so far, but after getting along with him these days, I always feel that he is a little wary of me, and he is always a little hesitant to take action. In short, when he arrives in the imperial capital, if you want to test it out, you can on the premise of protecting yourself. Besides, if he is determined to kill Jinghuai for Su Qingmei, then leave him alone. This person is not worth your trouble to protect. As for Su Qingmei, the more joy she plays now, the sooner she will die. In her previous life, she had some fools in her hands who were of little use to her but relied on their usefulness to become arrogant. As a superior, she would still give these people a bit of patience and kindness when they were useful. But once they are no longer of this use, these people are a burden to the superiors who can be discarded at any time without any concern. In her opinion, Su Qingmei is like this to Kongyan. I understand that even if I take action, I have to wait until the show is over. Shen Yunqing didn't want these two people to affect the program that His Majesty had been busy recording for 3 days. Did you watch that show too? See, I would also like to congratulate His Majesty for exceeding the 5 million fan mark. Are you still paying attention to this? Zhang Lingzi's solemn tone dropped, and she couldn't help laughing. I heard from Zheng Zheng that it seems that it has only been broadcast for 1 episode, and it has grown so much. I don't even know it myself. It's your words, so I'm not surprised. In his heart, His Majesty's charm is unparalleled. Zhang Lingzi was so happy with these simple words, but if you open an account, you will definitely gain a lot of fans, no less than me. That's not necessary, I don't need other people's attention. Zhang Lingzi almost blurted out, as long as I pay attention, but stopped in time. Well, I will go back to the city tomorrow and be invited by a new friend to watch a show. The signal there is better than here, so I can do it then. Make a video call. Then I'll wait for you. The serious content of the call at the beginning was washed away by the relaxation at the end. Zhang Lingzi hung up the phone happily and then realized that Shen Yunqing on the other end always felt a little tired when he spoke. There were so many things happening in God's city last night. This person couldn't be too busy dealing with them and didn't sleep all night, right? Shen Yunqing pressed her swollen temples and was about to put down her phone when she noticed the phone vibrated and subconsciously glanced at the screen. I saw the avatar with the word 11 flashing, and then a message popped up, "Don't think about anything now, go to the bedroom and have a good rest." Shen Yunqing couldn't help but read the 3 big exclamation marks one more time, curled her lips and replied, "Yes." Xiaoji walked over with a serious look on his face, thinking about how to persuade the person in front of him to rest for a while. Before he could say anything, he saw the other person standing up from behind the desk and asked quickly, "Sir, you just came back, where are you going?" "Bedroom, rest." "Hey," Xiaoji's eyes lit up and she was so happy, "I'm going to light a piece of soothing incense for you, sir."